Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ask Ira Job Seeker Q&A. I am happy you are here. I actually took last week off, so we're coming off a 2-week or 1-week hiatus. But anyways, it's been a couple weeks since you've had an opportunity to ask me job search related questions. What does that mean? If you've never seen the show before, what this really is this a way where I once a week set an hour aside to help job seekers directly. Normally, most of my efforts are funneled through my website, projecthelpyougrow.com, which is free. It works around the globe. It's open 365 days a year, 366 on leap years. 366 days on leap years, even. It's 24/7. So you can get all kinds of help. We'll bring up the website a little bit, I'm sure, as I start answering questions. I point people a lot to the blogs on the website. To me, that is where the value of Project Help You Grow really comes. It is a platform that was created with this purpose in mind, to connect job seekers to recruiters and employers for free. Everywhere around the world can use it, and it was just designed to be a bridge. Now, as it's been around we're going on our 5th year now, mainly what people are doing is two things. They're looking for jobs that are available, and there's millions of job listings on Project Help You Grow. In fact, we have a deal with ZipRecruiter. Every job listing, job description that is on ZipRecruiter is also on Project Help You Grow. But the advantage of using Project Help You Grow is it's completely advertisement, no spam. It's all free. You don't even have to have an account. You don't need to create an account to use it. So that's what's kind of nice about it. You can go and you can look. There's no email coming your way if you open it up. I don't do any of that stuff. There's no outbound emails that come to you, or we don't sell the information to third parties, so you can use it without having to worry about getting spam, which is nice, because every single day, as I'm sure I do, you as well get spammed, and I don't like spam. I'm anti-spam, so I don't send you that stuff out. Okay. But the other thing that it's really become is a way for people to come and get educated. And that's really what we're trying to do on the show, is help people learn how to adjust. Oh, it's my daughter. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is my daughter who's been sick, and she's been making great progress. So for those of you who haven't seen the updates, Lizzie is doing much, much better. In fact, she's been staying with her grandparents up in the Bay Area while my wife and I have been taking care of some stuff and working on our house and things like that. And she's been recovering. So she's actually coming down today. My wife is up there in the Bay Area to pick her and her twin sister up. So anyways, hello, Lizzie, and can't wait to see you later tonight. Anyways, so what are we doing on the show? What are we doing with the blog on Project Help You Grow is really the same thing. We're trying to answer questions and help people fix their strategy, because the strategy is, in a lot of cases, what it needs to change, right? We can argue ad nauseum about how the ATS is not very good and how people's HR processes could be streamlined or improved to help the masses, make it easier. But you have to understand the way business works. It's a little bit different it's not idealistic a lot of times. They fix systems that are broken, usually when it starts to affect them and their bottom line. So here's what I mean. Let's say you read a job description and you think, man, I'm the perfect candidate for that job. And you just send out your previously written resume and you send it out. And you know that it's not a keyword match, but you know that this word is close to that word and stuff. And so you send it and you think, well, then when they see it, they'll know that I'm qualified and I'll get the interview, and, we'll go from there. But that right there is a huge mistake, because most companies, medium and large, especially enterprise companies, so your bigger corporations, a human being isn't looking at most of those resumes at first. It filters through the ATS. And the ATS, part of what it's designed to do is help them to find the candidates easier that are a good match. Now, it's like that baby with the bathwater thing, though. because if you're not doing keyword matching, the artificial intelligence, which I really don't like that word because it implies that it's smart and it's not really smart. It's kind of dumb in the sense that it's a yes or no, right? This keyword is a match, or this keyword or that word isn't a match. And you get these points. This is how a lot of them work. And you get rated based on, so there's knockout questions, which we can talk about in a second, but a lot of them are looking for these keywords. And if you have similes or words that are similar, and you think, and I use this all the time because I was in sales for a long time. So I'll say, I'm looking for a sales rep, but they don't have sales in their resume. They have used account manager or account executive or business development manager, or any other, chief revenue generator. They got cute with it. That doesn't match the keyword. And so if I'm looking for sales and they've used every other way to express that they do sales without using the word sales, the keyword match for the ATS, that's a 0, right? And so you might have the perfect resume in reality, being practical, but for real world application for the ATS screening, that's why you're not getting asked to interview, because it looks like you're not a match. Now, once the human beings get involved, now we can obviously see, oh, this is a keyword match. They do have this. But the problem is, I mean, just to put it practically, most of you don't want to revise your resume each and every time before you submit, whether it's the effort it takes to do it or you just don't understand the need for it. It's probably a little bit of both, to be quite honest. And in fact, the third category would be, and I've talked to plenty of job seekers like this, they've actually paid somebody, a professional, to write the resume, and they're like, I'm not a professional resume writer. I paid somebody $200, $500, $1,000, whatever you paid, to have them write my resume. I'm just going to use that. That was professionally done. Well, what you have there with the professional, if you're asking them and they're giving you good advice, they're going to tell you, what I've written for you here is a master resume. You still need to revise it for each and every job submission because of the ATS. Now, there are some caveats to that. If you're giving your resume directly to the person that's going to be doing the candidate selection, in other words, they're the ones who decide who gets interviewed and who doesn't, then you're okay, right? If you're giving it directly to the recruiter who's in charge of picking the candidates that they're going to send forward to the HR department or to the owner that's hired them to find candidates, then again, keyword match is not, that's different. Everything I'm talking about is when you're going through a portal of some sort. So you're applying on a website of some kind for consideration to get interviewed. That's where this keyword match is so, so important, because human beings know similes, likes for likes, right? Artificial intelligence, unfortunately, isn't there yet. I'm sure it'll get there eventually, right? But where we are now, I spent a lot of time on this because this is a major, major problem. Now, maybe you have another issue that you'd like to talk about. Resume is one of them. We can talk about formatting. We can talk about how to set it up. We can talk about all kinds of things. Anything you want to ask about a resume, knock yourself out in the question, send it to me, and we'll talk about it live. We can also talk about cover letters, cover letter strategy. We could talk about employment gaps. We could talk about informational interviews and what they are. We can talk about getting a visa or sponsorship if you're in one place, part of the world, and you want to work somewhere else. We can talk about strategies on how to do that. Just had a guest on, I guess it's been a month ago, who is an immigration attorney out of New York City, who had immigrated himself from Turkey, which is really cool because he has the experience from both sides. Okay. So he was on my show. I can give you resources to that. I actually listed him on the partners tab of Bowman Digital. Of Project Help You Grow, not Bowman Digital Media. He's not on there, but he is on the Project Help You Grow partners tab. Okay. So if you want to talk about any of those things, or if you have another question, maybe on something like LinkedIn, how to set up your LinkedIn profile so that you can capture more attention from the recruiters or employers when they come to see it. Because I will tell you one thing that has become pretty standard practice anymore is when they get the resume, they're almost guaranteed to go to your LinkedIn profile too. And they're looking for validation that what you have on here, because the keyword match, some people just don't understand it. They don't understand when you say you got to revise your resume each and every time before you submit it to increase your chance of earning or winning, if you will, the interview, right? You got to be above the cut line. Some people think that means fabricate. And that's not what it means at all. By no means am I suggesting that you would invent or falsify, however you want to say it here, right? But we're saying you what you need, what you put on there is it's still accurate. I teach people how to do this in a blog on the website, but Project Help You Grow's website. But basically, what we're saying is you take a like word and you change the word that you have in this analogy. I've said sales, right? So you change the word sales to account manager or account executive if that's what the job description says. The job description is your clue as to what you need to write, not fabricate. But what you do is you go through and you go, okay, these are the things that they're asking for. Here's my resume. I suggest you get two highlighters out. You get one that highlights the words that are already there that are exactly the same. They're exactly the same. And then you get another color and you highlight the ones that are close but not the same. And then as long as it's applicable, you switch it over, right? Now you can use resources, and I have these again listed on the website, like jobscan.co. It's a free resource. You can put the job description in, you can put your resume in, and it'll do that for you with artificial intelligence. It'll say, hey, you're a 73% match right now. 73% match is like, if we're on a grading system, that's a C. What's the odds you're going to win the interview with a C grade? Probably not great. But if you could take these words and it'll suggest it for you. So you take these 12 words and change it, and that'll bump you up into like an 89%. Now, if you had a 73% keyword match and you go to an 89% keyword match, your odds of winning that interview are much better. But what they're going to do, a lot of them will go over to, again, your LinkedIn profile, and they'll look to validate, go, yes, okay. They've used different words here on LinkedIn. We understand that because we're a human being, but we can see how they have this 89% match because it all jives, or it doesn't jive, and they can kick you out. Again, that's up to the human beings, and every company has a little bit different way that they do it, by the way. So first thing that you really would have to understand is there is no singular ATS program, and there certainly is no singular process for any one company. Even members of HR or recruiting staff at the same companies can have a slightly varying ways. Maybe it's based on department or whatever, but they can have variations in how they operate, how they do things, right? So this is one of the things that frustrates me when I'm helping folks, and people that I talk to sometimes speak like they're an authority on the topic. Like, well, you're lying, Ira, because in my company we never did it that way. Yeah, well, yours company is one of how many companies on the planet, right? And then people tell me that the ATS program that they use doesn't work the way I've described. I'm like, do you know how many different ATS programs there actually are? There's over 10,000. There's over 10,000 different ATS programs out there. And I say right off the top, I don't teach you an exact, I can't, because of the variations, teach you an exact methodology for this one application. What I'm teaching you is best practices based on my research. And my research includes talking to some of the developers who've made ATS programs, by the way, just so you know. I really dug deep on this thing because I was really curious. Just a little bit of my backstory. I was talking with Kirsty Bonner. I want to say this was back in 2018. It might have been 2019. It was right around there. She hated the ATS like with a passion. And I actually thought it was a little bit irrational. And Kirsty and I were really close friends. So, I asked her, I dug deep on it with her. I'm like, what? Tell me, what is it that you hate about the ATS? Because she really hated it. And I'm like, okay. So I wrote some of the stuff down from our conversation and I started to do research. I wrote an article. I think this was 2019. I wrote an article called Demystification of the ATS. And really what I was trying to do, because a lot of people had never heard of the ATS at that point. They didn't even know about it. And I was like, okay, well, what is this thing? Because there was so much negative. All the conversation about the ATS everywhere was all negative, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to help job seekers with Project Help You Grow to at least understand what the beast is, so that they can get through it better, right? Help you travel through the ATS screening process. Because at the time, that's all I thought it was. I didn't know that it did so much more. ATS programs are not just about weeding out candidates for interviews. That's one of the things that it helps with. Yes, the screening process is part of it, but it actually starts the beginning of the journey is when the job description is being written. A lot of companies will use the ATS program and write the job description right there in the ATS program. And then it tracks all the applicants who apply for that job, but not just that job, all the jobs and their interviews, and up to a lot of them will do the new hire paperwork. So it's job description through new hire paperwork and everything in between for the whole spectrum of candidates. That's how it works. Okay. And again, there's 10,000 different programs. So before you tell me I'm wrong because your ATS program you use doesn't work that way, just understand I know that. Um, but there's so many different variations. So what I did is I went through, like, I figured out that Oracle created Talao, which is the number one used ATS program in the United States and in Europe, and then some of the other ones. And I put the list out, the top 10 that were being used at the time I wrote it in the article. And I reached out to them, and then I reached out to some smaller companies because I figured I'd have a better shot of talking to people with smaller companies, which I was right. So I've got a couple questions. I'll get to those in just a second. I just want to finish this up. So I reached out and I talked to them about things like, hey, how can they know what rules? Are like, well, we publish that stuff on our website. So one of the pieces of advice that I give to folks is, if you could talk to the recruiter of the company that's hiring and ask them straight up, hey, what ATS program do you use? Then if, like, they say Talau, okay, great. Now you can go over to Talau's information on the website and look and see. These are the formatting rules that it uses. Like, for example, if you can use a Word file, a text file, a PDF file, what size font to use, what colors to use. Can you use columns? Can you have hyperlinks? Can you include images? These are things that the answer depends on what system they're using. In fact, it's even more than that, because now you have really two schools of the same system in a lot of cases. Some ATSs are now SaaS based, which just means software as a service. So if you see capital S, lowercase a, capital S, that just means it's a software as a service. They didn't buy the program, they're paying some type of regular fee, pay as you go kind of fee, right? So instead of buying the program for like 10 grand or 50 grand or 100 grand, they pay like a service fee and they can use it monthly. But why does that matter? Well, here's why it matters. Because when you have SaaS, you almost always have the most current version, the latest and greatest version up, right? There's no reason to have a legacy program. But for the people using the older versions, what we would call in software development legacy programs, they're not necessarily going to upgrade every time they can because it will cost them more money. So they're going to use older programs. It might be 3 or 4 years. So you might go to a website saying, okay, well, they have Talal or they have whatever they have. Let me see what it says. Be careful what you read, because you also need to know, oh, they have the legacy version. I used to, unfortunately, get in some disagreements with people about this because it goes against what we've been taught for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. We've been taught that PDFs are the way to go because it helps protect us. But let me explain to you a very common way the ATS is used. Again, I know that not every ATS program works this way, but a lot of them, in fact, I believe the majority of them work this way. A part of what they were designed to do was to remove the hiring bias out of the hiring process, right? So take out gender, take out your I'm trying to think, like, what is that? What do you call it? Racial. Sorry, your racial profile. Take out racial profiling. Take out age. Take out, you know, poverty level. All your income level. All that stuff. so to make it as even a playing field as possible. So they wouldn't see the name, they wouldn't see um, well, a lot of things, right? So to strip some of that identification stuff out so you can just be considered based on the qualifications that you have for the job, which in theory is brilliant. In practicality, I don't think they did a good job with it. We could talk about that some other time. But how they do that is this, and this is the part a lot of people miss. They have to take the resume then and strip out or pull out the ingredients, and then they reassemble it so that everything is rebuilt in a uniform way, right? So you might have name, address on the right or on the left or in the center. Some people might include their email address up at the top. Some people might have other qualifying information or something graphically, aesthetically pleasing or whatever. It's designed to take that stuff out of play. But then, like your employment history section might be called employment history or work history or experience or work experience or job history or any of those things. Well, it doesn't really matter what you call it. It's going to put it in the ATS system in a certain spot. And then so the jobs, well, some people might have the date first. Some people might have the name of the company first. Some people might have the name of the role first, like the title of the job that they did. Some people might have it inside columns, right? So they've got some type of spreadsheet where they've built it. Some people have, tabbed out. And so, however you've got it set up visually, this ATS program has to know where to pull from and then to put. So it's got to be able to extract and pull. And here's one of the problems with the older or what we call legacy versions of the ATS with PDF files. Now this goes, I learned this from my print experience, but from my print experience, I learned that sometimes you look at a file and it's a flat file, right? It's like a picture, like a JPEG. And so any words that are on there, there's no OCR, there's no optical character recognition, there's no image character recognition. So when you send that PDF on a legacy, not all, but some of the legacy ATS and some of the major legacy ATS to be specific. I'm not going to call anybody out because I don't want to get sued here. But the fact is, some of the legacy ATS programs could not interpret the words, the written words on a PDF file. It saw it as a blank, it saw it as a photograph. So the reason why they would suggest sending a text document or a Word document is because you don't have that same prohibitive nature. It knows what every single word is. It can extract it and put it so you can see it and put it where it goes. So new SaaS, as far as I know, all of the new versions of the all the SaaS versions of ATS, as far as I'm aware, now all have addressed, because that was a big issue. That was a big deal. People were applying for jobs thinking they're a perfect candidate, even if they did the keyword matching, did everything they're supposed to do. They would submit it as a PDF. The ATS would read it as a blank submission, and then these guys would get a rejection letter like 6 seconds after they applied, and you're like, "What the heck? I should have been perfect for that job." And that's what it was. They were sending the wrong file format. Now, again, as we get further and further down the road, it's 2022 after all. You should be able to send PDFs, but you need to be careful. I still recommend sending Word docs. When you understand what the ATS does, they're not looking at your they're not looking at your resume straight away anyways. They're taking the information, stripping it out, putting it in a uniform thing and looking at that, the information in their uniform system, not on the document they sent. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't open the attachment and look at it. Yes, they can. As far as I know, all of them will let you do that. So they can see what you sent. But the fact is, they don't necessarily look at what you sent. And a lot of them don't look at it before the candidate interview process has already been arranged, right? They go through the screening process and then they go through and say, okay, these are the ones the computer picked. Let's look at those. A lot of them don't go back and look at the ones that were weeded out. They just were weeded out because of volume. This is the problem, right? You got one job, you got 2,000 applications for one job. Well, the computer system that you have in place to help you screened out, 1,950 of them. And I'm only going to look at the top 50. I'm probably going to screen out another 20 or 25 of them myself because I'm not going to interview 50 people for one job. Who would do that? Right? Not most people would not do that. So that's kind of how it all works. Hopefully, this explanation, because most people haven't asked me questions, hopefully that was very helpful to you. I do have a couple questions, so I'm going to ask them here. And if you have a question, feel free to put it in the comments. I will answer. And also, if you would like a free profile review on LinkedIn, that is another service that I offer on the show. We'll bring up your profile on LinkedIn, and we'll look at it, and I'll give you some advice on what you can tweak to help make it more enticing for those employers and recruiters who would check you out because you want to get the interview, right? So I'll help you with that if I can. What is the difference between a two-page CV and a comprehensive CV resume? What should each contain? It's funny. How do you lay out your soft and hard skills? Okay, so there's the STAR method, there's the Carl method. These are things that Kirsty Bonner used to talk about all the time. Let's get to it. I need to share my screen. Hang on just one second. Okay. So this right here is Project Help You Grow. This is a great question, by the way. Really like it. Just so you know, first of all, a CV and a resume, they're very different. It has to do with mainly the amount of information that you are going to put. Like, for example, if you've got less than 5 years work experience, Kirsty Bonner and I would both tell you that you don't need more than one page as a resume, right? As a CV, maybe it's 2 pages. You don't have enough, work experience to go on like 4, 5, 6, 7 pages. It's kind of overkill. But to your question exactly, I'm going to show you where to get the information because there's a lot. You've asked a lot of questions, and I could spend more than half an hour answering it. But I want to show you where to find the information because it'll be better. So I write on the website. I have a lot of blogs, a lot of different articles. However, I also have some that are guest written, and this is one of them. This was written by my buddy Curtis Tompkins. He is the owner of Job Ready Today. That is a service where they help, among other things, write resumes. They also help with cover letters. They help with job search strategy training, right? So they do a few different things. But I just want to make sure this was actually written by him. I might have actually written this one now that I'm looking at it. Yeah, I think this is actually this one. Okay, this one was written by me. I'll find the one that was written by him too. But why revise your resume? Read this article. Okay. I'm going to drop these links here in the comments so that you can find it. Um, and I apologize. This one actually doesn't answer your question directly. This is the question that I get all the time is why should I revise my resume every single time? And I've already answered that question on here, but since I had it up, we're gonna find the one written by we're gonna find the one that was written by Curtis because it's always nice when you hear it from somebody other than me because I feel like it's my voice a lot. But where is it at here? This is that article I was talking about, demystification of the ATS, by the way. And guys, please always be careful when you're in your job search stuff, especially if you're looking to work in a foreign country. It just seems like there are so many people out there that get taken advantage of by con artists, and they really are con artists. So just be careful about that. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. I might have missed it here because I think these are older, but yeah. Hang on a second. I think I must have skipped over it. It happens. I'm not perfect. 3 questions you should ask. Mental health. Counter H, punch it, long line. Project Help Hero cover letter. Okay, so it should be right here. Keyword ninjas, cover charms, block schedule, when the interview, ATS. Man, it should be right here. I wonder if for some reason it got deleted. I've got a lot of topics on here. Sorry. I know this isn't riveting TV. Sorry, guys. Okay. Well, let's do this. Oh, I didn't want to do that. Okay. So what I'm going to give you for this, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit because this isn't. I've got this one. I share this one a lot. I'm going to put this up here too. Okay. So this is how to earn the interview. What I mean by that is if you are looking at a job description and you're like, man, I'm really qualified for this, or I'm pretty qualified for this, right? So it wouldn't be considered a stretch job. A stretch job is one of those where you look at it and you go, man, I would love to do that job. And I'm pretty sure I'd be good at it if they'd give me a chance. That's not, that's a stretch job. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you look at it and you go, okay, I've got 7 out of 10 of the major skills, I've got work experience in that, or better, then you're good enough to be interviewed for that position. Okay. This article will walk you through what you need to do to make sure that you're getting more than a puncher's chance of earning that interview. It's called earning the interview. It's like winning, right? It's a competition. In reality, it is. You think about it, you're applying for a job, you've got, 500 other people that are applying for the same job, or 250 people that are applying for the same job, or, you know, 2,000 people even that are applying for the same job. How do they pick the candidates that they're going to actually interview? Well, that's what this article goes through and teaches you how to format everything. One of the things that we just covered, right? You should be submitting docs, doc, or text formats because many ATS systems struggle with PDFs for the reasons that I just went into in detail a minute ago. Okay. But you actually asked a great question on here, which is, should I be using a CV or a resume or a deep resume? Sorry, I just got a text that was kind of disturbing, but it is what it is. Okay, so how do you know? One of the ways that you know what to use is you're going to ask. There's this thing called informational interviews, and I haven't talked about it in this show. I'm going to switch over to this view for just a second so I can look at it. So, if you're applying for a job and you don't have experience in that area, or maybe you have experience in the field but you've not worked in that region, right? So it could be either. It could be the type of company, it could be the field is different, it could be the location is different. Any one of those three. What I would recommend that you do as part of your preparation for, and I've got it on here, let me just double check and make sure. Yeah, I don't have it on this one actually. Okay. So that's on preparing for the interview itself, not for this. So there's a second article, but I talk about this. I talk about the informational interview. And then I wrote an article just about the informational interview. But the idea is this. You can ask the recruiter, you can ask somebody else who's got that job or that type of job in that area and get a little advice from them. Say, okay, should I be using my resume, a 2-page CV, or an extended CV? Because you want to use what they are expecting is the answer. Now, the only person who can really answer that for sure is the person that's hiring, the person who's running the screening process, right? Who's picking the candidates that will be interviewed. That's the person that really knows, but you don't always want to ask them. Although I would say you should ask. If you have access to them, ask, because then you're giving them, and it does two things. It makes sure you're giving them what they want, and it also helps to show them that you're serious about this. You're not just being flippant with it, right? So that is my suggestion. My suggestion is that you ask. You need some help there. But if you can't find out directly, that's where informational interviews come into play, right? You find somebody else similar and you say, hey, okay, what do you think I should do? You can even put a question up on LinkedIn and ask. And, now you have to be careful about who you listen to, right? But look for somebody who's got a similar title at a similar location who responds. Even if they're in the minority, and most people are saying resume, but they say, let's say you were going for an engineer, you're in, it doesn't really matter. You're in San Jose, California, right? You're applying for a job in London, England, right? And so you put up the question, should I use a CV or a resume? And 99% of the people respond resume, because that's what they know. They don't even know what a CV is, right? And in San Jose, California, you would use a resume. But over in London, you wouldn't use a resume, you'd use a CV. So you get a person who responds who's an engineer over in London, and they say, hey, you should use an extended CV, or you should use a 2-page CV, whatever they say. They might just say CV. Then you can reach out and respond to them and say, hey, okay, cool. Should I use a 2-page CV or should I use an extended CV? That's how I would recommend that you go about it. Okay. So if you have any more questions about that, let me know. Very good question. Got a question about sponsored job. How do you apply? Okay. Sponsorship positions are hard to come by. So there's a whole strategy on how to get sponsored. You kind of have to start with building relationships. Even when sponsorship job is normal for a company to sponsor people, it's still a significant investment in time and money. The company that's sponsoring you has to invest quite a bit of money in you. And so what what I'm finding through interviewing people, talking to lawyers, talking to employers who do it, talking to recruiters who are part of the process, because there's a lot involved. There's a lot of legal stuff that's involved in time. The attorney that we had just watched this show from, I think it was 4 weeks ago now. I think it was a month ago. But go on and watch. And I wrote an article just recently and I put it in the article, I believe. Hang on a second. I'm going to pull this up and just make sure. And then if it's there, I'll pull it up. No, I haven't written the article yet. It's still in my drafts folder. Okay. So watch this show from a month ago. Okay. And we talk about it at length because I had an attorney on the show. He was um, an immigration attorney from, again, New York, the state of New York, and he helps people every single day with immigration. That's what he does. So he came on the show and answered a lot of questions. We went through catalog the difference between visas and green cards and how long things take. And there's even a way to do it without sponsorship. So there's a lottery system for green cards where I think it's 55,000 people get selected in March every year for the United States, but there's a process you have to apply, and I think the deadline is like right now. I think you have to apply by November something to be in the running for the March lottery. Don't hold my feet to the fire on that. That's just, I'm doing that from memory. So I might not have that right, but it's something like that, right? So there's a process, and then you don't need a sponsor. But for everybody else that wants an HB1 visa, which is the most common work type visa, right? Then you would need sponsorship for that. So you have to you have to understand this isn't just something that you say, oh, today it's, Wednesday and I'm in fill in the blank country, and by 3 months from now I want to be working in fill in the blank other country. It doesn't work like that. So I I would tell you this: the harder it is to fill a position, whether that's because you got to go through a certain amount of education or there's just certain skills that are not very common, right? The harder it is to do a job, the more likely it is that you would be really realistically considered for sponsorship. Okay. Because they go, well, this is just a hard position to fill. And the only way I'm realistically going to get this person, and we're going to be committed through this sponsorship process, like it's kind of like a marriage. It's like almost like a marriage contract by the time you get through it all. Like there's a commitment there. So that's why I say start with the relationships when you can, because if they know, like, and trust you, that's half the battle, right? So you got to figure out how to do that. And I can give lots of examples on how to do that on my website. But if you do some research, so chef, I don't know, is one of those that really sponsorship's going to be like practical, right? Like that might not be the path for you. And again, I'm not trying to crush your dreams or anything. I'm just saying chef's not that uncommon. But what you would need usually is you would need to look at the local labor market, the local labor pool, and go, this particular skill is in high demand, or this and low supply, right? It's a supply and demand type thing. So you look for local labor markets around the globe that are short on the job type, of labor, of the job type that you want, and that you have a better shot of getting sponsored. If you can figure out a way to build a relationship, which I give ideas. A lot of them are networking or traveling and visiting the place, spending some extended time there so that, you don't, it doesn't seem like just a pipe dream. It seems like, okay, I've got a plan. Like, here's a piece of advice I'll give you. Don't tell somebody in Canada that you want to immigrate to Canada, right? You're talking to an employer who's trying to hire, and you're like, "Hey, would you sponsor me? I want to immigrate to Canada." What you want to do is talk about the town. You want to talk about the specific city. Like, there's a big difference between Vancouver and Toronto. Huge difference. Culturally, location, climate. I mean, huge difference. It's the distance between those two. It's farther, I believe, than New York City to LA because of the way the land moves out. So be familiar with the area that you're looking to immigrate to and be specific, because that shows, again, some intent. It shows that it's just not, a top of mind or a whimsical type thing. This is something you're committed to, right? And then when they ask you why you want to immigrate to that city, let's say Vancouver, then you got to have some specific reasons. Why Vancouver? Why not Montreal? Well, maybe, you don't speak French. I don't know. I'm just whatever, right? But it could be that you have family there. That's a good, you know what I mean? That's a good one. It could be there's something specific about that region that you just really like. Um, but have a thought out answer, because those are questions you're going to get, and they might be follow up questions to that. So it's got to be even more than surface level. This has got to be well thought out. It's a long, like I said, it's a long process getting sponsored, and it's an expensive process for the employer, not just the employee who's going to move out there, right? So you have to understand, if they can hire somebody locally and if it's easy for them to hire locally, that's most people are going to take the path of least resistance, right? I mean, it just makes sense. So, anyways, okay, this is going to be helpful to me. I feel I've not positioned myself well, CV, failing to market myself accordingly. Yeah, don't feel bad about that. A lot of people do, but the nice thing about the blogs is there's a lot of information on the blog. In the blog, the articles that are inside the blog, there's a lot of information that can help you go from, you know, just kind of getting by to excelling. Because the thing that a lot of job seekers don't do is they don't put in effort for every application. So if you are strategically putting in effort to improve your application with each and every submission, in other words, you're not using the same resume or CV each and every time, but you're doing the editing work and you're following the ATS formatting rules that I've given as guidelines to help you increase your odds of getting through the screening process, because that's really all we're doing there, you're going to be so much further ahead because it's non-scientific. But when I asked this question, which is in the poll, that article that I wrote, I'm just pulling it up real quick. Yeah. Okay. I had 1,787 participants respond to a poll that I did. And I asked the question, are you revising your resume? And you can, put CV in parentheses there before you turn in your application for a job each time. I know that most people are not. I do know that for a fact. But it was interesting. The poll results came back this way: 11% said they don't revise the resume at all, and 49% said that they do edit it a little bit. Right? That is, it's half. It's half the people are not revising at all. So if you got 2,000 people that apply for a job and only half of them are revising their resume at all, that means if you're qualified, again, this isn't a stretch job. If you're qualified at all, you've just bumped up past half of the applicants because they're not doing what we call keyword match. They're not formatting necessarily for ATS. Now, they could have hired a resume writer who is familiar with the rules of the ATS. And so even though they don't revise the resume each time, they still get through that part of it. But they're not going to get through, in most cases, they're not going to get through the the keyword match. And that keyword match is a huge differentiator. Once you have the formatting issues resolved, the only other thing really to differentiate yourself between all the other qualified applicants is keyword match, right? Are you actually eligible? So again, it's not a stretch. It's not a stretch job. And then knockout questions. Knockout questions could be stuff like, maybe there's an element of driving and you have to have, a valid driver's license, or there's commercial driving and you've got to have a commercial driver's license, right? And it says something to the effect of, if hired, do you have a commercial driver's license? And you put no. That could be a knockout question. And so anybody who puts no is automatically rejected, right? Or, it could be one of these things where you can't have a criminal background for whatever reason. And it says, do you have a criminal background? And you go, yes, I do. And it's a knockout question. And so you're out, right? So there are knockout questions, there's formatting, and then there's the actual keyword matching. And those are the elements that if you can master these things, you have a really, really good chance of getting through. Now, there is some other types of discrimination that happen. The one that really irritates me is something called ageism. And that's when they look at older folks or people that are more experienced, what I like to lovingly refer to as silver foxes. And I include myself now. I'm on the earlier end of that era, but there you go. I'm in my mid 40s now. And so they'll look at the date ranges on resumes, on applications, and go, ooh, yeah, right. And then they won't want to interview you. In the United States, that isn't a legal practice, but in reality, there's no way to police it for the most part. And so people get away with it. But there are strategies to help counterpunch. And that's, I wrote an article called Counterpunching Ageism. So that's why I use that term there. But there are some strategies to help you with that. Right. So anyways, that is where the blog strategy comes in, right? You figure out what problem in the job search you're having, and then you can read the blog and it'll help you with that. Now, one of the things that I do, and I actually use this show to help with it, is I try to figure out, okay, what questions am I getting in the show that I don't have thoroughly covered in the blog, or maybe something I haven't talked about in a while. And then I either bring on a guest, I ask a guest writer to write a blog about it, or I write the blog myself after doing some research. And that's how I get topics for Project Help You Grow. Anyways, I don't think I have any more questions. Oh, I've got a few more in here. Let's see here. We've got often some adverts require one submit copy comprehensive CV to be used for all applications the applicant makes. How long should the CV be in that instance? Again, that's still, you have to know how much work experience a person has, right? So if you've got 10 years, it's going to be different than 20. The type of work that you're applying for is going to matter. And I actually am not a fan of we're just going to store your CV on file. Now, if it's a smaller company, non ATS, I think this is okay. But when you're going through an ATS program, in other words, they're going to hold your information on file. And every time they have a job listing, they're going to screen it to see. That actually doesn't help you because you're not going to have the opportunity to keyword match. And so likely what's going to happen is you're just going to keeping getting passed over. So I really don't like that. I really don't like that system. Your assistance in reviewing my resume would be humbly appreciated. I currently have ATS resume. However, I need assistance as I consider a career change. Yeah, I don't really do resume reviews per se. There's a couple of legal reasons why I don't like to show resumes online. Mainly it's because of, I don't want to give away your confidential information, and I don't have an easy way to blur it out on the show. But if your resume is ATS compliant, and you need help on how to transition from one to the other, this is where we talk about soft skills versus hard skills. So show more of your soft skills. The other thing that you can do is you can bring in sometimes volunteer work. Okay. So, like if you do some of these things, maybe at a church or at a soup kitchen, or there's a philanthropy that you volunteer for, even though it's not paid, but you do it for an organization that, like I said, a 501c3 or whatever, that nonprofit, you can use that. Or you can, like, I'm getting ready to launch a new internship program. Actually was hoping to have launched it yesterday, but I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball here. But interning, even when it's not paid, is a way to get practical real world experience that you can put on your resume. And a lot of times people just want to see that you can do it. They don't want to pay you to be a guinea pig, right? It's about risk mitigation and risk. So you have some experience on your resume somehow that makes you less risky, right? And then you want to get a letter of recommendation or a referral letter from folks saying, "Hey, I've worked with so and so in the past. Even though she was in this department and this was her title, she helped us with this thing. And, in reality, I have every confidence that she would be excellent at fill in the blank new role." And so there you go with an idea on how to transition from one. Like I had to transition in 2020, just in full disclosure, from print sales. I was in print sales for over 20 years. And then I transitioned over to the owner of a digital media company, which we basically are doing marketing. Now, for me, there was a lot of overlap. But because I was the business owner, not the employee, I didn't have to put a resume together. But what I did have to do is I had to convince the companies that are hiring us as a vendor that we were capable of doing the work that they were hiring us to do. Right now, with 2.5 years of portfolio experience to draw from, now we don't have to necessarily do that very much anymore because we have a lot of references and referrals and work that people can actually look at, and we can point to and go, "This was our project. This was a website we built. This was a video we made. Here's photos Ira took. Here's a domain authority that we started working on SEO with them over a year, and we built them up from this number to that number. Here's their web traffic, that kind of stuff." So, anyways, that all helps. Okay, you are doing volunteer work, which is good, right? So now work on the other parts of that. Um, Look for those referrals for the recommendations. Get people who are like managers of those types of departments or who have a really strong resume to validate your talent and your skill, and that'll help you close the gap, right? Won't be a problem at that point, I don't think. A free profile review. You got it. We are running short on time, but I will give you one because these can be very beneficial. So, Chris Rodriguez, let me pull you up. For some reason, my LinkedIn, I think the video restarted on me or something because it's pretty far back. But Chris Rodriguez, I just have to find you here. There you are. Okay. Okay, so these profile reviews, remember the idea here is you want it's kind of like you're fishing, you want to set the hook. You want any recruiter or employer who's checking you out, you want to catch their attention as fast as possible. So the glaring hole that you have just right off of the bat is there's no cover photo, right? Your profile photo actually is fantastic. I love it because um, you have a warm, friendly smile facial expression. You're wearing professional attire. You have whitewashed whatever was in the background. So, that's a PNG file, or maybe you are in front of a white drape. But either way, it looks nice and clean. It looks professional, and I can see your face. So when I meet you in person, I already know what you look like. So, profile photo is great. Don't change a thing on that. Cover photo. What you want to do with cover photos is you want to have a photo that's visually interesting, but also you want to tell a story with it. So I like to show, I'm going to pull one up. I'm just going to show you guys another one. I made this cover photo for he's actually my cousin. I made this for him um, when he was job searching. Okay. He's not job searching anymore. In fact, um, he's had his current job for a couple years now. But this right here is a photo of Rancho Cucamonga, which I'm sorry, Rancho Cordova, which is just outside of the Sacramento area. So the reason why he did this is because he was not looking to move. He was looking for a job locally, right? So cover photo, anyone from this region would probably recognize this is their area, right? And then what do we do here? This is the thing. This is like how you take it to the next level. But right now, he has what most people have as the default for the heading, which is job title and company. Okay. So he is an associate government program analyst at the Department of Water, right? Title company. That's LinkedIn's default. But when he was job searching, we used the heading in a very different way. We're using the keywords that would be in the job description of the jobs that you're looking for. So these four words were in there. Now, so we had these four words here as well. We had other words too. But then the other thing that we do is we come down into the features section, and then we're making a case for the things that we're claiming up here. So it kind of like it builds on itself, right? But this visually says what? If you see this and you're only looking at it because the average LinkedIn profile view is 6.5 seconds. Someone comes on your profile on average on LinkedIn for 6.5 seconds. So you want to catch their attention and communicate what you do as fast as you can. And a picture says 1,000 words, right? So communicate, rapport, train, analyze. We're trying to communicate that fast. And again, you've got a photo very similar to yours, right? You can kind of see the theme. This is why you want to use these, because when people meet Anthony in person, he wants them to know what he looks like. That's part of rapport building. That's why we do it that way. That's why we recommend this type of a headshot uh, for your profile photo. Okay. Now, for you, again, Chris, if you just get a photo here, it doesn't have to be the town that you live in. That you don't have to do that. That's just one way you could do it. Like for me, for a long time, I was in the print business. So I had pictures of graphics, or I had pictures of ink, or I had pictures of stuff that we would print, right? And so I tried to show people this is, what I do through the picture. And then on the side, I would put, print, graphics, supplies, call Ira, right? That kind of thing. Okay. I like having a call to action in the actual cover photo now. Now that I've evolved in my thinking on that, but it's kind of like tell them what you do and then tell them what you want them to do, right? Reach out to me for a free consultation or something like that. Get that in your cover photo. Like for job seekers, I say now open to the right opportunity, because you're not going to take any opportunity. You're going to take the right one, right? The right one might be because of the salary, might be because of the location, whatever the variables are for you that make it the right job versus the wrong job. But, now open to the right opportunity or something along those lines, available for hire. We could just say it like that, right? So there's a couple ways to do it. Let's look at this. Okay, you got 1,709 followers. It's actually not a bad, that's not a bad size. You want to work on increasing your visibility. Being on the show certainly will help you do that, because there's going to be some people who see you here. But keep working on this. And the biggest thing I will say about building your following, building your connections up, is it's not just about numbers, but it is about numbers at the same time. You need some volume. So how do you build up volume? And this works for every platform. This is not a LinkedIn only. This can work for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, any of them. Okay. Make comments, be friendly, but do it as much as you can. Like, I'm not saying spend 8 hours a day making comments. I'm not trying to say that at all. But I'm saying, like, if you could devote 15 minutes a day, and maybe in 3 different sections. So you do it for 5 minutes, and then you do something else, and a couple hours later, you do 5 minutes and you do something else, and then a couple of years later, or maybe even 6 hours later, right? You come back for 5 minutes and you do it again. If you do that, what that does is that social media is really top of mind. Okay, I'm going to switch over to this view for just a second, but social media is top of mind. So when you're making comments on other people's posts, they're seeing you. When you're making posts on your page, they're not necessarily seeing you, because no offense, 1,700 people is just not a lot of people, right? It's not like you have 4 million followers. I don't either, right? I have a couple 100,000. But when I post, a certain amount of people are going to see it. But when I comment, I'm going to them, I'm increasing my chance that they're going to see me. But not only that, I'm going to be giving myself an opportunity to be seen by other people in their pool that maybe and probably aren't following you already, right? So you're planting your seed out further and further and further. That will help you. So keep working on building up your following. Get that cover profile photo done. That'll be a big help no matter what you do, because I saw on there that you have entrepreneur, which is awesome. I also have entrepreneur as part of, I'm a business owner. I'm a philanthropy owner. I've got a few different things going on. So, entrepreneur is a title that I've adopted now, is what I'm doing. Now, this right here, dynamic, efficient entrepreneur, sales and marketing leader with 15 years record of achievement and demonstrated success. This doesn't go here. This information should go down here in the about. What you want to do, and this is something that most people get wrong. In fact, there's people who would probably want to try to debate me on this, but they'll lose if they fight with me, because this isn't an emotional thing for me. This is about rationality, right? This is what LinkedIn calls your headline. And again, LinkedIn's default answer to this is job title company. Okay. But you don't have that there. So you're already one step better than the default. But let me tell you the way to use this thing to maximize your visibility with people who don't already know you. Because people who already know you but are already connected with you are not reading your headline anyways. Let's just get that out there. And you can answer that question for yourself. When's the last time you read somebody you were already connected to's headline? right? You went to their profile and you read their headline. You probably don't do that very often, right? Most people don't. But the way to use it to get maximum benefit is to fill in those keywords. Again, I'm talking to job seekers on the show. So like let's say you've got sales in there, you've got marketing, those are certainly keywords, right? So if you wanted to be found as sales or marketing, you could leave those, you should leave those. Entrepreneur, I'm fine with. I don't like entrepreneurial because that's a term that's not going to be searched as much. Entrepreneur is going to be searched more, right? So you could leave entrepreneur, sales, marketing. Most people aren't searching for the word dynamic, so I'd take that out. Most people aren't searching for 15 plus year, so I'd take that out. You want to include the words like, think like this is Google, only it's LinkedIn, and this is search engine optimization, which is exactly what I want you to do, right? So I want you to infuse the keywords. Like if somebody was searching, they don't know Chris Rodriguez, but they're looking for somebody who does the things that Chris Rodriguez does. So let's just come down here and look a little bit at what you do. We've got, okay, water bear marketing. So there's marketing, sales. Okay, so we've already hit those. Um, business administration. You could add these words for sure. You've got it there on both. Okay. I would have to read this just a little bit closer to figure out what else. You actually could put ROI. ROI is a search term that would definitely be used. Technology. If you're doing technology sales, I'll tell you a good one for sales and for marketing. Um, Usually there's two specialists. There's the business to business, which is the type of sales that I did, and then there's business to consumer, right? So which camp were you in? Because you probably want to put that in there. Just going over what you've got. If you're looking for a role, business to business sales role, or you want to be a director of marketing or something like that, social media manager, whatever the case may be. But read those job descriptions that you're looking at for the type of role that you really want, and then infuse your headline with some of those that are applicable, right? You don't want to use one where they look at it and then they go through your whole profile and they go, I don't see that. I don't see how that's applicable at all. Cause then you just get, tossed out. So whatever you put in your headline, then you've got to build the case for it down below. And how do you do that? Well, again, you can turn on, it doesn't look like you have creator mode on. So turn on creator mode and use that featured section. You can have graphics, videos, blog articles that you've written. You can take pictures of your certificates. Like let's say you've done some, Zig Ziglar training or some special sales training, or maybe you've got a marketing certificate that you've passed on Coursera or whatever, and so you take pictures of those. You could take a picture of your diploma from school. Looks like you've got a couple of degrees, right? You could take pictures of those. You could have pictures of you at events. You could have, if you've sold products and you've got staged photos with you in the product, anyways, the featured section can be a major pickup for you. Look at the way my profile is set up and kind of mimic that on the featured section for the things that are applicable, because I have sales and marketing in my background too. And I think that'll help you. The other thing, and I'm going to move on because this show is officially 10 minutes overtime here. But the other thing that you can do is down here in the skills. So you have all 50, but you might want to go through those and look and see if there's ones that you don't really need. I'm going to go pretty quick here, but I would leave Salesforce because that's a CRM program that most enterprise companies are using. So that's good. You've actually done a really good job here on the ones that you've picked. I don't see anyone. Bing ads, maybe you could pull out unless you're really looking to do CPC work, PPC work. Yeah, the words you've got are good. You want to get endorsements. People always ask me, Ira, how do I get endorsements? You know how you get endorsements? You endorse other people that you know. I'm not saying go endorse strangers for random things, but I mean, you could honestly, because recruiters aren't looking at this anyways. This is all of this. These 50 things are about terms that are going to help you get discovered in reality in the search bar, and that's basically what they're worth. But the other thing that you can do here, and you have some already, which is good. So received, given, you've not given any. This is actually a problem. A lot of people don't think about this. This is next level here, but when you have two and you've given none, it kind of makes you look selfish. So find somebody. This is my challenge to you, Chris, is to find somebody that you've worked with in the past that it doesn't have to be direct employee, right? Or it doesn't have to be somebody that worked for you. It doesn't even have to be a team member. It could be a vendor that you worked with, right? That you just thought they did an amazing job. Write a letter of recommendation or referral for them, send it, and then try to get more of these recommendations here. And if you have any that people have written from the past that you're not connected with them on LinkedIn, or for whatever reason, you can't get them, what you can do is take a picture and then put that up in the featured section that you're going to turn on. Remember, you got to turn on creator mode. Turn on creator mode, and then you can add the photos there. Anyways, hope that was help. It wasn't extensive, but gives you kind of an idea of some things that you could tweak, and that will make your case stronger moving forward. Let's say, what do we got here? I think I had another question. Yeah, and that's that's something you could actually talk to an attorney about if you really wanted to push that, because I don't know that that is actually okay. I think if you bring up as a candidate age, then it's kind of like you've opened the door. So you'd have to talk to them a little bit about that conversation. But like once a candidate opens up that scope, then the purview, then an interviewer legally in the United States can ask about that kind of thing. But if you didn't volunteer anything along those lines and they ask you that question, that's actually, they could get in some hot water there. So yeah, it's bad. But ageism definitely is a problem. In fact, Marcia, she applied for my internship at Bowman Digital Media, and she was the first one I selected to be a part. Now, again, I thought I was going to be started already. My goal was to be started by November 1st, and I'm just running behind. But Marcia you're going to be seeing more of her because she's going to be on my internship. And that's the internship that I'm running was designed with the silver foxes in mind. How do I get people who are a little bit technically challenged, maybe, or that have been trained for 20 or 30 years doing something else, and give them a skill set that's commercially applicable in digital media? I've got a plan that I'm going to execute with this 120-day internship program to hopefully help with that. And Marcia is going to be on the team. So I'm looking forward to working with you, Marcia. Great idea on the 513C if you're interning volunteer. Yeah, right. You need experience. It doesn't have to be paid experience. Experience is experience, right? Thank you. In the process of doing volunteer work, your information is highly beneficial. I think I already showed that one. Interested. I don't know what that means. Appreciate a LinkedIn profile refresh. Okay, so here's one issue that we have is I don't actually know who you are. So go into your LinkedIn profile settings, and this is to any of you that are watching. If you've never done this, by default, LinkedIn shares your information with your first level connections and excludes it from second, third level connections and third parties. But you can, and I suggest you do, open it up to everybody, because most people are not putting anything private on LinkedIn anyways. It's all for public consumption. So you want the world to see it. That's why you're posting on social media. So open it up, allow your name to be shared, allow your photo to be shared, you know what I mean? Allow it to be shared so that when you're on stuff like this, we actually know who you are. I can't give you a profile of you. I don't know who you are, and I'm about to end the show. My video over here on the left with LinkedIn is behind, so this won't even show up after on LinkedIn. I'm going to know who this is, but right now I don't. So I'm sorry, I can't give you a profile review, but I will say this. Job seekers, if you're looking for a job, the process takes time, but the process is definitely different than it was even 5 years ago, right? 10 years ago. So if you're looking for a job today, like you were 5 years ago or 10 years ago, or God forbid, more than that, that is likely part of the issue. So It isn't they're rejecting you. The odds are they're not even seeing your resume, which might make you feel better. I hope it does. Because it's with just some simple strategy shifts, adjustments, we can make you much more visible and highly more likely to be asked to interview for that position. Then, if you read my blogs, I'll actually teach you how to prepare for the interview so you can knock the socks off of the interviewer. It isn't about volume. It's about, it's like you're going to go on stage and give a performance. It's a big deal. So you slow everything down and you prepare. You put a lot of time and effort into preparing for one opportunity. And I teach you in some of my articles how to even identify the one that you should really go after, because maybe you don't really qualify for it and you can put all this effort in it and you might feel really good about yourself and you might do an excellent job preparing for it, but you're still not really qualified. So you have to be able to identify what's realistic for you. And usually, just so you know, off the top of my head, the benchmark that I like to use is 80%. If you're looking at a job description and you 80% match or higher, that's one that you should consider really going after, as long as, it's in the area that you want, it's for a company that you think is going to be good to work for, and the pay is going to be what you need. And I cover all of those topics in articles if you need help, figuring that stuff out. But it isn't about applying for 100 jobs a day or 50 jobs a day or 20 jobs a day or even 10 jobs a day. A lot of people are struggling to find work because they're applying for too many jobs. And the reason why that's an issue is because they don't have time to do the things that they really need to do to give themselves the best position to be considered, right? It's about doing the homework, it's about putting in the effort. And again, if I was out on the shooting range, this isn't me using like a skeet gun trying to shoot the clay pigeon with a shotgun, right? There's however many pellets, 200 pellets or whatever inside the little cartridge, and when I shoot it, it's got 200 BBs that fly out. No, this is like one arrow. I'm pulling one arrow back and I'm trying to hit that bullseye right in the dead center with that one arrow, right? Like that's the difference. So we're not. This isn't, spray and pray is the term that a lot of people use, where you spray your resume out there like it's grass seed and you're just throwing it out there, throwing it out there, throwing it out there, hoping something sticks. That can actually lead to depression because you're going to feel rejected 500 times, right? And you weren't really rejected 500 times. You just didn't give them what they needed to really consider you, because nobody in that scenario, likely nobody even actually looked at your resume. You probably put it out 500 times and you got rejected by 500 AI programs. Instead, if you do this work, you might only put out 5 resumes a week. You might only put out 10 resumes a week. But those are like really, really good silver bullets, if you will. And you have a much higher chance of being successful and getting and landing, is the word that recruiters use, landing a job much faster. And I'll even teach you how to get paid more. If you read my interview prep blog about, how to negotiate your salary. And I think I wrote one about that not too long ago, just about negotiating your salary, because a lot of people don't do that. There's so much desperation. You're right there at the end and you're like, man, I'm just, whatever they give me, I'm just going to take it. Right. I don't want to lose the job. But right there at the end, that's why people then will have to switch jobs faster and they'll be unsatisfied because they're going to be making 15 grand a year less than what they should have been making. And now they either got to go find another job or they've got to cut something out of their life, their quality of life, that they, just they don't want to live without. Like, let's say you have a Starbucks habit, or, you want to go out to eat every week or something, right? That costs extra money. We have to cut that out because you don't make enough to afford it. And they never consider inflation. And a thing that I just, it's like my soapbox issue, but you need to ask about raises and promotions before you accept any offer, because the money they're paying you today might be enough, but they may not do a raise for 2 years. That might be their company policy. We don't do any raises for 2 years. And so what you're making today in 2 years might not be enough. You know what I mean? So all of these things, Any of them by themselves, not necessarily a big deal, but when you add it all together comprehensively, it can make a huge difference. So, anyways, that's why I do the show. Hope you guys enjoyed the show, and I will see you all next week. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching.